Welcome to the Ocean of His Words channel, where we immerse ourselves in the ocean of the words of God and discover the pearls of wisdom hidden in its depths. In this session, we'll discuss how the best beloved in God's sight is justice from the second counsel of the hidden words. Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Joe Goldstein.
I'm Harry Medray.
And I'm Dan Ray, and we're all three members of the Baha'i community in Statesboro, Georgia. In the session tonight, we're going to continue our deep dive into the hidden words of Bahá'u'lláh. Specifically, we're going to look at a foundational hidden word about justice, about the importance of justice, and why it's a gift to humanity and why it is the best beloved of all things. Hari, would you share that quote with us?
Of course. O Son of Spirit, the best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me, and neglect it not that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behoveth thee to be. Verily, justice is my gift to thee, and a sign of my loving kindness. Set it then before thine eyes. Bahá'u'lláh.
Thank you, Hari, for reading that very powerful quote about justice. Before we get started and before we begin to uncover the hidden meaning of this quote about justice, I'd like to give you a general introduction to what justice is according to Bahá'u'lláh. So let's look at the next slide. And according to Bahá'u'lláh, justice is more than a mere code of conduct or a book of laws. On a societal level, it's a universal legal standard that applies equally to the rich and to the poor. And on a personal level, it's a spiritual virtue that enables us to distinguish what's fair and what's unfair. And it also motivates us to empathize with others and treat them fairly. Comprehensively, this principle of justice includes what we mean by fairness, equality, equity, and moderation. So it's very broad, the way Baha'u'lláh uses the term. And so now, Hari, would you read the two definitions of justice from Baha'u'lláh?
Yes. And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. It is through justice that everyone is rendered his due. Bahá'u'lláh.
These two quotes or definitions of justice are just two. There's more to to the meaning of justice than these two, but these are two very useful ones. And this illustrates each of these definitions with stories about Abdu'l-Baha, who is the perfect exemplar of how we should lead our life. So Hari, would you read the first story about racial justice?
Following Abdu'l-Baha's talk on race unity at Howard University in Washington, D.C. in 1912, he was the guest of honor at a diplomatic reception. Prior to the luncheon, Louis Gregory had been summoned to the reception by Abdu'l-Baha. Some of the guests present were very prominent in the social life of the capital. All were white, and segregation of the races was a social custom. Before the luncheon could begin, Abdu'l-Baha stood up, looked all around the room, and asked, "Where is Mr. Gregory? Bring Mr. Gregory." The hosts scrambled to find Louis Gregory. At Abdu'l-Baha's request, Mr. Gregory was brought forward and seated on his right side, becoming the de facto guest of honor. This was accomplished easily by Abdu'l-Baha. He stated that he was very pleased to have Mr. Gregory there, and then in the most natural way, as if nothing unusual had happened, proceeded to give a talk on the oneness of mankind.
Thank you, Hari, for reading that story. If you're not familiar with who Louis Gregory is, he was an early African American Baha'i, and this interaction with Abdul-Baha happened towards the very beginning of the 20th century, and this was in the United States. So this was there's a kind of a rich irony to this because at the time he was meeting with white Baha'is, prominent Baha'is. Abdul-Baha was, who were interested in the oneness of humankind, but it never occurred to them that a African American Baha'i ought to join them at their meeting with Abdul-Baha because at that time it was not considered appropriate for African Americans to meet with whites in these types of settings. But Abdul-Baha was not really interested in that social convention, and he wanted Louis Gregory to be present there. And you might say, well, today we really could not really envision that type of treatment in American society. Perhaps it would be much less common than it was at the turn of the 20th century. However, there are still ways today in which racial justice is an issue in American society, and it requires people to think outside, perhaps, of the customary ways that we look at race relations.
Thank you, Joe. Let's now look at the other quote. And Hari, would you read the story about Abdu'l-Baha and how he
Yes,
rendered what was due to this carriage driver?
yes. Once, while Abdul Baha was in Egypt, he obtained a carriage so he could offer a ride to a pasha, a man of high rank or office in North Africa and the Ottoman Empire, who was his guest for lunch. When they arrived at their destination, the driver asked for such an unreasonably high fee that Abdul Baha refused to pay the full amount. The driver, big and rough, grabbed his sash and jerked him back and forth, demanding his unfair price. Abdul Baha remained firm, and the man eventually let go. Abdul Baha paid what he actually owed him and informed him that had he been honest, he would have received a handsome tip instead of only the fare. He then walked away. Abdul Baha's grandson Shoghi Effendi was embarrassed that this happened in front of the Pasha. Abdul Baha, on the other hand, was evidently not at all upset, but simply determined not to be cheated.
I think we can all relate to this story. No one wants to be cheated. And if we give in to somebody like this, a bully, we only reinforce that behavior. And of course, everyone wants to be and should be paid fairly. An example of needing to be paid fairly and rendering what's due is how women should receive equal pay for equal work. So another example would be the minimum wage, which should be fair and a livable wage. You shouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living. But unfortunately, we have not internalized this virtue of justice. We pay lip service to it, but we don't really practice it in our society to the extent that we should. Now let's begin to go back to that foundational hidden word about justice and analyze it phrase by phrase, beginning with the first part, an invocation calling on us as the Son, O Son of Spirit. Baha'u'lláh is appealing to our spiritual capacity to have an open mind, that it's impartial and unbiased, that we're open to the truth and what is fair. So now let's go on to the next slide and look at what is meant by the best beloved. Why is justice the best beloved? So Hari, could you read this quote for us, please?
No light can compare with the light of justice. The establishment of order in the world and the tranquility of the nations depend upon it. Baha'u'lláh.
And that's a short part of the quote, but it's very important. I think, justice is an incomparable light. It's a brilliant light. And when we use that light and shine it on matters of concern, we can see what is true and what is right versus what is wrong and false. We can see what is real versus what is superstition or mere speculation. So, Joe, what's your take on that?
I'd like to talk about the second part of the quote, about the order in the world and the tranquility of the nations. Um, Unfortunately, what we quite often see in the world today is disorder in the world and the turmoil of the nations. And a lot of people focus on that and talk about how bad it is and speculate as to what the solution might be. Um, there's all kinds of things we might do to address those issues, but what's at the heart of it? What's at the core of it? And Baha'u'lláh points us out that the precondition for order and tranquility is going to be justice. Uh, so, um, when we have real justice in the world, when we apply it in a systematic, thorough, and effective way, then we can reach that degree of order and tranquility that we long for.
You know, a simple example of this might be an intersection, a four-way intersection with a stoplight. If people don't follow the law and obey the red light and the green light and the yellow light, you're going to have wrecks. And so, for order to be maintained and for there to be tranquility and safety, we need to follow justice, a just way of ordering things that's fair to everyone. And so that's just one simple example. Thank you, Joe, for sharing that information. So let's examine what it means to turn not away from justice if you desire to be close to God. And neglect it not that God may confide in you. What does that mean? And so, Hari, would you read this quote, please?
Be an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Bahá'u'lláh.
Okay, Joe, what are your thoughts on this?
I'd like to talk about being an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. And that's the second part there. And that calls to mind a verse from the Bible. It's Matthew chapter 25, well, actually a series of verses 36 through 40. And it states, I was sick. Sorry, I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That is for Christ. And that verse of the Bible tells about how we need to be focused on those disadvantaged members of society, the people who are suffering unjustly at the hands of others. And so that's a part of justice is creating a true equity within our society so that everybody is treated in a way that they deserve to be treated and treating others the way they wish to be treated.
That's a very perceptive take on that quote. We never know that oppressed person, that poor person, might be Christ disguised. We don't know. We know that God is reflected in each of us, and we should treat each person like they are Christ. And so that is motivation to treat people fairly and to care for them.
Mhm.
So now let's go on and look at what it means to see with your own eyes and not through the eyes of others. So, Hari, would you share this quote?
Yes. What does it mean to see with thine own eyes and not through the eyes of others? The essence of all that we have revealed for thee is justice, is for man to free himself from idle fancy and imitation, discern with the eye of oneness his glorious handiwork, and look into all things with a searching eye. Bahá'u'lláh.
Well, that's a very important part of the quote and the hidden word. And I like to focus on what Baha'u'lláh means by the eye of oneness and what he means by a searching eye. So often when we look around us and look at humanity, we look at differences. We look at things superficially. We see the color of people's skin, the texture of their hair. We listen to how they talk, their accent, where they come from, and so on. And we don't really look deeply. And I think Baha'u'lláh is telling us, look beyond the superficial differences. Look with the eye of oneness at the underlying unity that connects all of us. And that's a spiritual unity. We are all servants of God. We're told we are made in the image of God. We're all children of God. And that's a spiritual unity that you don't see on the surface of things. But once you look deeper, you begin to realize we are a part of the same unity. Joe, what's your take on this?
Well, I'm focusing on the part of the quote that talks about freeing yourself from idle fancy and imitation. So I wondered, what exactly is meant by idle fancy? What exactly is meant by imitation? And idle fancy, I think, are the things that we might wish to or to believe that are true, but there's not really good objective evidence for it. Or it's maybe more a matter of wishful thinking about how we want things to be and not how they actually are. And imitation, I think, is what is meant by that here is that people just kind of doing what other people are doing, following the crowd, going with the flow of the majority, and not being able to perhaps see something because you just want to be in line with everybody else. And so the antidote to this is to be your own person, to follow your own path, to be independent minded in your outlook on life, and to really, above all, individuate yourself. Be your own person.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I think of these idle fancies also as being just mere speculation, being conspiracy theories that people get caught up in and speculating about this and that. So there's no reality many times to these speculations or these conspiracy theories. And so it's all superficial, and we need to look deeper with this eye of oneness. Next, let's investigate what it means to know of thine own knowledge and not through the knowledge of your neighbor. So, Hari, share this quote with us, please.
Yes. What does it mean to know of thine own knowledge and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor? Every man must be an investigator for himself. Ideas and beliefs left by his fathers and ancestors as a heritage will not suffice, for adherence to these are but imitations, and imitations have ever been a cause of disappointment and misguidance. Be investigators of reality, that you may attain the verity of truth and life. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Hari. It says every man must be an investigator for himself. Children are natural investigators. They're like little scientists. They're always exploring and investigating, taking things apart, wanting to know how they work. And so this is a natural drive, a natural motivation. But many times as we get older, we lose that curiosity, or at least it gets stifled. And so we begin to kind of go along with what other people are doing, and we imitate what they are saying, and we want to fit in. And we stop being curious. We stop being open-minded. But I think Abdu'l-Baha is telling us that we need to examine and to investigate our beliefs and be like Socrates, who said that an unexamined life isn't worth living. We should be examining what we're learning and investigating what we believe to see if it really is true, and to know whether it's has substance.
Mhm.
So, Joe, what is your perception of this? What is your take on it?
Well, I'm focusing on this sentence here that starts with ideas and beliefs left by his fathers and ancestors as a heritage will not suffice. I think that's so important because there's a tendency among most people to well, of course, we tend to love our parents and our grandparents, and we tend to feel pride in our heritage, going back to our ancestors and things. And so there's a natural tendency to want to follow in the footsteps of these people that we love and care about. And that can be a problem when perhaps new information, new understandings, new ways of looking at things emerge, and if they're not in consonance with what we've gotten from our families or from ancestry or heritage, we may not be open-minded to it, and we may miss something really important that we need to pay attention to.
And that's so important, becoming your own person. And that's a sign of spiritual maturity, having your own opinion, your own beliefs, your own thoughts, and not just imitating others or copying or going along with others to fit in.
Mhm.
And so now let's look at why justice is a gift to us. Why has God given us this gift? Hari, would you share that quote with us?
Yes. The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. Bahá'u'lláh.
That's a very powerful quote also. And on a personal level, to me, justice is a gift because it enables me to see what's true and what's false, to judge what's fair and what's unfair, what's real and what's speculation. And that's a real gift to have that light of justice and to be able to shine that on something, a decision that I'm trying to make, or whatever it might be I'm considering. I can use that light of justice to make a fair decision, an objective decision. Joe,
Mhm.
what's your take on that quote?
I'm focusing on the last sentence there. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. And what is the real outcome of unity? Unity is the foundation of peace, of true and lasting peace. And so without justice, you can't have peace. And without peace, you can't have unity, or they're all dependent on one another. These are all preconditions. We all, I think all fair-minded people want peace in the world. And so all of these things are connected. And uh, so justice has an objective, beyond its own self. It has in mind, or its purpose rather, is the well-being of all humanity, the highest condition of human peace and tranquility.
Thank you, Joe. I think on a social level, that is the most important gift that Baha'u'lláh has given us. This gift of justice as a foundation for unity and peace. Without justice, there's no order, there's no tranquility, there's no unity, there's no peace. No justice, no peace. Thank
Mhm.
you, Joe.
Mhm.
So now let's go on and look at some Christian quotes and how they relate to this concept, this principle of justice that we've been talking about. Hari, would you share these quotes, please?
Yeah. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Psalm 89, verse 14. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Matthew 7, verse 12. Having eyes, do you not see? Mark 8, verse 18. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. In righteousness, you shall judge your neighbor. Leviticus 19, verse 15.
Thank you, Hari, for sharing these important Christian quotes. And I'd like to focus on having eyes, do you not see? And this is kind of a common type of quote that you see in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's really a comment that's being made. It's a commentary that's being made that many times the followers of God uh, looked at things literally. They looked at things superficially with their physical eyes, and they didn't have the insight, the spiritual perception. They lacked that spiritual perception. And so, and specifically in this quote, Christ is saying to his disciples, you do not understand what I'm telling you. You have confused what I've told you. He told them previously to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and they thought he meant that literally, that they had forgotten the yeast that they needed to make the bread for the masses that would come to see Christ, to hear him. And they didn't realize that that was a metaphor. It was symbolic and it had a spiritual meaning. He was really talking about being aware of and warning them about the hypocrisy of the pretentious Pharisees, how that could spread and expand and could corrupt them also if they were not careful. And so he wanted them to understand that and to understand his mission was spiritual, but they tended to take everything so literally. And so he was saying, basically, you have eyes to see, but you do not see what I'm telling you. You lack that spiritual perception. And in the Baha'i quote about justice, Baha'u'lláh is saying the same thing, that we need to have that eye of to search with a searching eye, and to have that eye of oneness that looks deeper beyond the superficial differences, deeper, and sees the connections and sees the oneness, the unity, the spiritual unity that we all share.
Mhm.
And Joe, what I know you have a particular quote that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I'd like to comment on Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is a very well-known verse from the Bible. And I think that it has a lot to do with justice because my understanding of justice in seeing with an independent eye, as Dan has been talking about, means that we understand it for ourselves. And so this is kind of a key to understanding that what justice is. If it's something that would be fair to me, it should also be fair to somebody else and vice versa. So we develop that way of looking at something as mutual, the interest of our fellow human beings are our interest and vice versa. And then that's the way we develop a sense of equity. Equity being that, what's fair for me should be fair for you and vice versa. And then through that, we develop that foundational aspect of justice. We're able to see it as it relates to us, as it relates to others, and then we don't need a verification from a third party. It will make sense to us, and then we're going to have greater discernment about what it really is.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it, Joe? To
Mhm.
have that empathy and to see others as you would want them to see you. And that's what Baha'u'lláh says also in the well, one of the quotes that we gave are the definitions of justice. Choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. It's
Mhm.
just another statement of this golden rule of which is a form of reciprocal justice. Treat others as you would want them to reciprocate to you.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Joe. And now let's look at some other resources for a deeper dive into what it means to be what justice means. The first resource is a catchy tune, a YouTube song about the best beloved, the hidden word that we've been talking about. And the second resource that you see is another YouTube presentation by Layli Miller Muro, and it's on what justice is. She was the former CEO of the Tahira Justice Center, which is dedicated to protecting the human rights of female immigrants who are abused and trafficked. So they are at risk. They're very vulnerable. and she's been a very brave person, and I think you'll benefit from listening to her presentation. Let's go on now and to bring it to closure and do a preview of the theme that we'll be covering next time on divine love. Hari, would you share this quote from the readings next time?
O Son of Man, veiled in my immemorial being and in the ancient eternity of my essence, I knew my love for thee. Therefore I created thee, have engraved on thee mine image, and revealed to thee my beauty. Bahá'u'lláh.
Thank you, Hari. So, in our next session, we'll explore why God has created us, has engraved on us his image, and revealed to us his beauty. So, thanks so much for joining us here on the Ocean of His Words channel, and we hope you found this video useful and stimulating. We encourage you to subscribe to this channel and participate in the comments section below, and let's all continue to immerse ourselves in the ocean of His Words so that we may unravel its secrets and discover more pearls of wisdom hidden in its depths. And until next time, take care. Bye, everybody.